Hey everybody, it's Chris and Rick Talk Guitars. That's Chris over there.
Good morning.
I'm Rick. Today we're going to talk about the Fender Telecaster.
Wow, yes.
It's a cool guitar, man, and it's fond to us in different ways, or we have fond feelings about it in different ways.
Special
Not
feelings.
sexual, but well, maybe, I don't know, maybe Chris does. He really digs Tellies.
I like them a lot.
Okay. But anyway, I'll kick it off by saying I'm late to the game. I'm a day late and a dollar short. That's the story of my life, right? Uh-huh. Like Telly's been around forever, and I played guitar for long enough that I should have been into the Telly earlier in my guitar playing career, but I really wasn't.
Really?
When I was young, I associated it with country players, and I didn't really like country at the time. And I and I did have this perception of the Telly that it was kind of this, not obsolete, but you know what I mean? Like kind of Antiquated guitar, yeah, kind of. And so I was attracted to more like Strats and those kinds of guitars and things like that. But as I got older and I saw like people like Keith Richards playing them, and Pat Travers even played like a black deluxe Telly for a while, yeah. And I saw Tellys come up in what I considered my stuff, which was the classic rock of the time in 70s and stuff. Rock players. I started to get a little more aware of them and more interested in them. I haven't owned one until, not too long ago, really. As you know, right? I bought the one that wasn't a Fender Telly, but it was a Telly for all intents and purposes. And then I have that custom reissue that is really cool too. But so that's kind of how, growing up, that was my perception of Tellys. Hey, it's played by country players. It's twangy, cool, but it's not for me, man. But as I got older, I really appreciated the guitar, and also just not only as an instrument, but just where it is in the history of the solid body electric guitar.
Right.
Like, how about you? When you were a little wee kid first getting into the guitar, what did you think of the Telly? Were you instantly attracted to it? Or?
It was kind of like what you said. I mean, when you're first starting out and you're learning about guitars and stuff, especially back then, you make these judgments like that's the country guitar.
Exactly.
This is the rock and roll guitar. So it was either like when I was starting out, you either wanted a Les Paul or a Stratocaster. Yeah. Those were the two things you saw all over the place. But it was fairly early on. It was in the 80s when I started digging Telecasters, and I didn't have one until the 90s, but they were kind of on my radar as, yes, I'd take one of those if someone gave me one of those. I was playing a Strat at the time, but...
Were there some players that you liked that were playing them, or what were some things that kind of started to point you in that direction, or if there was?
I don't, I think it's more just like visually. I mean, I think Keith Richards is a big part of it, and I think Tom Petty, I've seen him with...
Mike Campbell, yeah.
So,
cool.
Those kind of got on my radar, but there was something just about the way it looked. I just loved the looks, and I thought I could definitely see me rocking that. But I kind of gravitated. My first Fender was a Strat, which, I tried to bond with for years and years, and I really couldn't. But, I got my first Telly in probably 1992. And as soon as I put it on with a Strat, because I hadn't played one like standing up. I've handled a few of them, but I didn't play one. It was just like the perfect weight. Just the way it hangs.
Cool.
It just felt really great.
Nice.
Like the neck, everything about it was the way it was balanced. It's like I could definitely see making music on that. But getting into it, my first impressions of it were it's the country guitar. It's like I'd take one, but I'd rather have a Strat.
Yeah. Well, I have a vivid memory when I was young, and this was, again, in context, it was the 70s. I was a big Van Halen freak, hard rock freak. And I remember we were in somebody's bedroom and they had a vintage Telly. It was like a 50-something Telly. But it seemed like this weird antique that somebody brought out to show people. You know what I mean? And that's the way I pictured it. It's like, well, that's not a fucking Super Strat or some weird shit.
Tweed amps.
Exactly. And I remember having that association with it. It's like, it's like an antique. Oh, look at the oak desk we have in the corner. Right. It's like, and I just didn't give it any consideration. But as I got older, I started to go, like you said, it's like, I think it's one of the coolest body shapes of all, because it's kind of a squared off guitar shape. It's not like a round Spanish guitar. I mean,
with Gibson's the same thing. The Junior is my favorite Gibson.
Exactly. It's just a slab of wood. Yeah.
And I've never, I get that the Stratocaster was like revolutionary in like its contours and being the custom comfort guitar.
Right.
But how many times have you played guitar and said, "Oh, my ribs hurt from playing"? I've never really noticed that. I do notice on a Les Paul, my forearm hurts sometimes from the carved top where it hits the sharp edge.
Yeah.
But I've never. I mean, The Telecaster is infinitely more comfortable to me than the Stratocaster. The Stratocaster feels good, and it's a good balanced thing. But where the controls are and just how it feels, is like it's way more natural on the Telecaster. That was one thing that I've always.
Well, and the cool thing about it is it's just such a simple guitar. I mean, initially,
dirt simple.
Initially though, it's kind of weird. About the wirings were all they went through this kind of weird. Steps with the wiring, right? And I was reading a little bit about that, and it was counterintuitive, really, like some of the early wiring because the first one was an Esquire, essentially, which one pickup, and then they had added a pickup on the neck. But the wiring was really weird in some cases, which is kind of interesting to me. But ultimately, it is a simple guitar. There's two knobs. There's a switch. So it's not like there's this learning curve, like going, wow, what's this other switch do? It's like you can figure it out pretty fast, right?
Right.
So, but that's what I dig about it too, is just the simplicity. It's like it's not like rocket science. It's not like all these switches and these other things. It's like, well, it's a pretty straightforward guitar, but it is versatile though. Within that simplicity.
That's one thing I wanted to talk about is
go for it, dude.
Is that guitar? I mean, if I'm recording anything and I had to bring one guitar, it's going to be the Telecaster. You can get so many different types of sounds out of that just by rolling back the tone control and where you pick. Over the bridge or towards the neck, it just has an infinite amount of really cool sounds. And anytime I'm recording something and it's like I'm struggling with this doesn't fit, this guitar part just doesn't seem to fit, I'll grab the Telecaster and it works every time.
That's cool.
I mean, you can take a Telecaster and roll the tone back just a little bit and hit the front end of the amp with like a preamp or something, or just a little bit of a boost. It'll sound like a P90. It's got that same kind of mid-range growl at certain places. At certain settings, and like I said, I mean, if you go back close to the pickup over the bridge, it sounds a different way, and you move it up just a little bit, and it'll sound totally different. It's like, it's my most versatile guitar that I can think of. And a lot of people will point to the Stratocaster. Look, it's got 3 pickups. It's more versatile, but not for me. I think I can find more useful tones in a Telecaster any day. Yeah. But I mean, it's going to be different for everybody. But
it is. But I think the Telecaster is one of those guitars that most guitar players find their way to,
I think so too.
Either if it's early in their career as a guitar player or later, because they just, once you play one and like you're saying, start to mess around with it, you go, this is a cool guitar. The pickup is different. That single coil pickup is not a single, it's different than other single coil pickups. We talked about that before too. It's like a Firebird pickup is different. Well, that's a totally different thing, but the pickup's different. And what's cool about the Tele that I think is another cool thing is it's the next generation. Well, not next generation, but it's that evolution from the steel guitars Leo was making, right, to the solid body electric guitar. It's kind of, maybe it's the link, right, between those two.
Link.
Yeah, the missing link.
The Bigfoot it's like of guitars. Bigfoot. Yeah,
but I think that's so cool.
Yeah, because those pickups on some of the there were like Telecaster pickups on some of those lap steels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People will find those and put the pickups in guitars.
Yep.
If you've ever played a Broadcaster, the very first ones of those are super crude. They feel like they've been made in somebody's basement.
I know, right?
They're super cool, but they're. I mean, when we talk about the Telecaster, we're talking about the Broadcaster, the Esquire, the Telecaster, the Nocaster, because they're basically the same guitar.
Yep.
Without the Esquire has one pickup, but you could put 2 pickups in an Esquire because the route is there.
Yeah.
So I like them all, man. I mean,
I do too. I just, something about that is so cool to me. How it's kind of like the older cousin or ancestor, or not. The steel guitar is the close ancestor to this Telecaster guitar, and the Telecaster is the first mass-produced, solid body electric. And I love underdog guitars kind of, because it came out, and then the Strat came out, and that was supposed to kind of, in Leo's mind, the Strat was going to kill the Telecaster. Right. Because this is what people want. They don't want this. But the Telecaster is so, if even today, you see people playing the Telecaster. They want the Telecaster. It's not and it's not for weird reasons I think it's a neat, thing to have. It's like they want it because of what it does. They want it because it's a really important part of their arsenal. Like you're saying, it's like, well, I want a certain sound for this song or this part. Oh, the Tele would be perfect for that, And I think that's cool because, again, Fred Gretsch even said, this thing will never sell. It's just a fucking plank of wood. It's like, but again, I just love the idea that somebody can come up with something and it kind of gets this ridicule, or it's kind of seen as this weird thing, but sure enough, it develops into its own, and it becomes something greater than people initially thought it would be. Totally. I think that's cool. And that's the Tele. Yeah.
Exactly. Should we talk for a moment about, because as you mentioned, you said that when Leo Fender created the Stratocaster, he kind of thought of his guitars as the Fender guitar. So the Telecaster was the first the Fender guitar. Now the new the Fender guitar is going to be a Stratocaster.
Yeah.
Some of the things he addressed in that people look at the Tele and say this is a shortcoming, is the 3 saddles as opposed to 6.
Right.
And let's talk about that for a moment, because for me, that is a big part of why I like a Telecaster. Is the first style bridge, the folded steel bridge, with the Tele pickup with the copper bottom plate. Something happens with that whole configuration that just it couples the pickup to the bridge, and it has that characteristic Telecaster sound. I had 2 Telecasters before that one, and they were good guitars, but they didn't have that sound. And the reason they didn't is they didn't have that bridge.
Oh, they were later models that had the
they had the 6 saddles, and they were just different type. They didn't have that coupling of the bridge and the plate, and that's a kind of a controversial part of the Telecaster. There's a lot of people who say, I won't play that. I hate that bridge because you can only intonate, pairs of strings, and it just hurts my hand, or for a number of reasons. But for me, that's always been a deal breaker. I need that on my Telecaster.
And I agree.
I mean, it's so great. You can pick that up and talk into it, and you can hear it through the amp. It's just this big microphonic bit of metal and pickup, and it just has that hollow mid-range that I just look for in the Telecaster.
Yeah, and I agree too. I agree. I like that bridge too, for those reasons you just said. And again, to me, that's what's so cool about all these different guitars, is just the way they're designed. It makes such an impact on how it sounds, how it feels, and some people don't like it, some people do, which is totally cool. But I'm with you. It's because my Strat was a 62 reissue, and it had those 60 bridge with it had the 3 saddles, but they had the ridges on it, or the threads on it. Yeah, my Telecaster, sorry. But I swapped them out for the solid,
the brass.
Yeah, because I dig that sound, and I really dig the fact that I did that. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
If you look at, I think currently Fender makes about 40 different Telecaster models according to their website. Yeah. And if you look, I think the majority of them may have 6 saddle adjustment, but there's a lot of people who love that old style bridge. And that's for them. But there's, other people that just can't fathom not being able to control all 6 strings. But it's interesting that when you look at all of their models, it's split pretty evenly. I thought there would be way more 6 saddle versions.
Oh, really?
But it looks fairly even.
That's kind of cool.
I didn't count.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, I'll go back and count. The evolution of the Telecaster, let's talk about that for a moment.
Okay.
Because it has evolved. The 50 style that had the 7 1/4 radius, right? And evolution of electric guitar has kind of leaned over towards a flatter radius.
Right.
Whether we like it or not, there's a bunch of people who still like me who still like the 7 1/4 radius, but I think the general consensus on guitar design is a flatter fretboard.
Yeah.
So, because the deal with that is with the 7 1/4 radius, they're harder to set up because when you bend, it'll kind of fret out on the arch of the radius. I don't have a problem with that, and there's a number of people who don't have a problem. But there's a good deal of people who require a flatter fretboard and a totally intonatable bridge.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the evolution of the Telecaster. If you look at the standard version Telecaster, those were the things that they addressed as they kind of saw as, faults or design faults or something.
Yeah, and I've never been that anal about, that kind of thing, because to me, I mean, if you listen to a lot of older recordings, I'm sure if you have perfect pitch, you can tell when, one of the strings isn't completely in tune with the whole thing. But to me, it's always sounded close enough. Or what I always dig too are the imperfections subtly, or, in these old recordings, whether it's the tuning of a guitar or whatever, overtones, whatever it is. I dig that because I just think that adds to the uniqueness of that song or that performance or something like that. But again, I've never been that anal about okay, well, I can't intonate this G string, unless I have a that bridge. But like you say, some people, they need that because maybe they hear it and it bugs them to death. But
or they think that the guitar should be like at the 12th fret should match the open fret, but that's not necessarily the case. I mean, the key to me with that is, are you playing the guitar in tune?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can play the guitar in tune, I don't care if it's got one saddle like acoustic guitar. There's another option. You can have a 3 saddle but have compensated saddles, so you retain all the best aspects of the old style bridge, but it's like more intonatable.
Intonatable. God, I love that word.
No, I mean, that's, again, I used to be kind of more of a outspoken like advocate for the old style bridge and like, it's not a Tele if it doesn't have that. I don't fall there anymore. I'm like, you can have whatever you want. And the other interesting thing too is we were talking early on about how these guitars came kind of into our consciousness as like the country guitars.
Yeah.
And certainly, given Leo Fender's love of country music and, his seeking of extra high end, it definitely has like a steel-like quality.
Oh, yeah.
But so much of like chicken picking and other things are in the fingers. So, I mean, if you did a search on YouTube for chicken picking videos and look at every post that didn't have a Telecaster, it's going to sound like chicken picking. It's just like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because it's more the technique rather than the guitar, essentially.
And I always love people who stepped outside of that. Like, this is country, I got to play, I got to play a Telecaster, and this is, not country, so I don't want to play a Telecaster. Right. Different instruments squeezed into different things, you get interesting tones and approaches, because your approach to the Telecaster is different than your approach to a Les Paul.
Right.
When I switched to a Les Paul in probably the early 2000s, when I went from Telecaster being my main guitar to a Les Paul Jr. being my main guitar, my playing style changed dramatically. What I found with the switch to Gibson is I left a lot more space around notes and stuff. It's a fatter sounding guitar.
Interesting.
So even though you could still probably do that on the Telecaster, it's just like it doesn't ring out as much. So I find myself more strumming and hitting, not letting things hang as much as I do on a Gibson style guitar. But now when I come back and play my Tele, I kind of brought some of that back over. So it's cool. So now I'm able to a little bit more just play a little sparser on the Telecaster and not so
that's cool
strummy. So yeah, it definitely has its own approach to playing it. It's kind of an unforgiving guitar. Yeah. You got to kind of pay attention. You dig in. If you dig in, it gets nasty in a cool way.
Yeah.
But if you play really, finessey, it'll pick that up too. But
I think it's cool when you were talking about Leo and his perception of like, this is just the Fender guitar of this time period, because exactly when this was all starting, I mean, I guess it was a model, but I don't think there was a thought that we're going to have like 1,000 models of guitars,
right?
It's just like we're trying to solve this problem. Guitarists say they want a louder guitar that won't feed back. So let's try to figure that out. But again, I'm just fascinated with that kind of crap, right? It's like, when this first was happening, it's like I don't think he could have ever imagined that, I'm going to have all these different models or all these different versions of this guitar, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, for some reason that just sticks in my mind and I kind of dig that. I'm glad I came to the Tele because for all the reasons you cited, it's just such a unique guitar. It serves so many different purposes in music. And I think I'm glad I kind of came to it because like I said, for a lot of my life, I just relegated it to that one, it's a country guitar, I don't want to play it, it's like it's not my thing. But and like you said, that's another interesting thing. It's like I associated Gretsch that way too, and because they were predominantly played by country players, and I think Leo even loved like country players, and he'd go out to these shows. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to talk about Leo is he was one of the first user experience designers back at that time, because he was listening to his customers. Not just what they told him, but he would go to shows and see what they were dealing with in a live situation. Oh, how's this amp working for this guy? How's that guitar working for this guy? And I thought that was so freaking cool because it's not like he was building this stuff and throwing it over the wall and going, well, I hope they can do it, and how it serves their purpose. He was actually going into the field and doing research and going, oh, well, let's take this feedback back to the shop and make it better for these people. I thought that was totally cool.
And then how right he got it.
Yeah.
With all that feedback and everything else.
Yeah.
Because today, I mean, it hasn't been topped. I mean, whenever you see somebody trying to knock out some sort of new model, there's a lot of times there's elements of the Telecaster in there.
Exactly.
Like, here's a Explorer-shaped guitar with a Telecaster bridge,
right,
and a Telecaster pickup
exactly.
in it. So it's just like he got it right.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally. Or here's just a Telecaster body style with all this other stuff on it.
Right.
But that's another thing I dig too. Is like, even when they were designing like the body styles, there was something that they captured that stood the test of time. It's like that, like I said, when you look at it first, you're going, that's weird, because it's kind of a squared off guitar shape. But the more you look at it, it's like, it's so cool. Like all those initial body styles, even the Les Paul, which is more just a direct copy of like a Spanish guitar with a cutaway, right. But still it's got something to it that they kind of got right. Like the curved top was kind of a nice touch. And the Telecaster's that way too. I just love everything about it. Like the headstock, it's that weird little truncated Strat. Well, it's before the Strat, but it was like a truncated Bigsby, headstock.
And the control plate. What I love too is if you compare it to the Stratocaster, it's like, let's say you got to you got noisy pots, you got to clean it. 2 screws and you pop the thing off, as opposed to a Stratocaster where you got to take off 9 screws or something, or 8 screws. So that was another thing he was looking for was serviceability.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because they thought with the Telecaster, it's like, okay, we're going to make a guitar, and if a guitar player has a problem with the neck, they just slap a new neck on it. But the thing of it is didn't realize how attached guitar players get to necks.
Right.
So it's like, I'm just going to refret this or plane it and do whatever I have to do because I'm really attached to this neck. So his was all like disposable.
Yeah.
Get another one on there. But it was a good idea and it kept production costs down. So
totally. And again, to the things that attract me to these things is I love that. I love the idea that his initial thought was, okay, this is going to be a guitar that it's a quality instrument, but it's easy to repair, it's easy to maintain, and like some of these parts may be disposable. Like you said, what actually ended up happening is like, no, I want this neck. Can you just change the frets out or the nut or whatever it is? It's like, oh, okay, well, I didn't think you'd grow that attached to that part of the guitar, but sure, we'll do that. But when you think about it, it's like, because guitarists, it's so important. That's why there's a V shape neck, a C shape, all this other crap, because certain players love, or a baseball neck as opposed to the thin 60s neck or whatever it is. And when you think about it, you're like, oh, that makes sense, because it's like, everybody's hands are different sizes and people like different, anyway, blah, blah, blah. But I love that point that you made too, because that was the initial impetus for this guitar was I want to make a quality instrument that you can easily maintain or repair. And he did that. I mean, the Tele is a testament to that mindset,
Yep. Let's talk about the bridge pickup, or not the bridge pickup, I'm sorry, the neck pickup.
Oh, I'd love to.
Because for a lot of people, that's kind of a shortcoming to the model. It's not as, they hear they're used to the Strat neck pickup or something like that, and they hear that. It's pretty mellow. I have a good one on mine, and I've heard some really good ones, but some of them, they're just okay. They're a little bit muffly and whatnot, but I never used the neck pickup. But I did record some stuff with my Telecaster on the neck pickup, and it sounds really good. It's very kind of jazzy and mellow, but I don't care about the in-between. I don't even know what that sounds like. I don't think I ever even tried that. But so let's talk about what Telecaster or Telecasters do you currently have in your arsenal?
I have that 62 reissue, Sunburst, custom. It's got the binding, and I really dig it. It's light. It sounds like a Tele. And I'm just a sucker for that kind of look, that sunburst, rich sunburst totally with the binding.
Gorgeous,
And then I had a pinup Tele made by Eric Daw, our buddy. He's a great guy. Great podcast, by the way. And it was a great guitar because it was built more like a 50s Tele, right? With the winding on the pickup. That was
a cool one.
And it was a great guitar. But anyway, those are the two I had as Teles. And more I pick that's my couch guitar, is that Tele. Like, it just feels so good. The neck feels good. It's just a cool guitar to play. So I've been playing that a lot more lately. Not only as a couch guitar, but just plugging it in here and there just to hear it through an amp. So those are the two Teles I had. What do you got?
Oh, I've got a 1990 American 52 reissue Telecaster I got back in like 97 or so.
Nice.
My first Telecaster was probably a 92 made in Mexico Telecaster, bought brand new. It was a good guitar. There was a few little things like the bridge was kind of rattly.
Oh, got it.
You played it, the saddle screws would kind of loosen up. So, and you can fix that. Wood glue out a toothpick. I think I just wanted the next level up. So I got rid of that, and I got an American Standard 93.
Got it.
And that was a good quality-wise guitar, but I was never happy with it. It didn't sound like the Telecaster sound that I had in my head. So a little while later, I was working in a guitar shop, and that walked through the door, the 52 reissue.
It's a cool guitar.
It spoke to me. And it's funny because it's the guitar I hand to people, and they're like, ew. Because it's a little heavy, and it's got kind of the skinny neck because it's the 90s. They had a different neck profile on those reissues. I love it. I'm so used to it.
Yeah.
And for years and years, it was my only guitar. So it's nice and broken in.
Yeah, I dig it.
And I use it. There's not a time where if I'm recording something, it ends up somewhere on it. Because it's just so many different sounds you can get out of that really quickly when you're recording, and they all sound great.
Yeah, well, and the thing I dig about them, too, is they're workhorse guitars. They're just the way they were built and constructed and designed, like, they stay in tune. They're tough, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can, again, like, Gibsons are notorious for the headstock break if you drop them and stuff. We talked about that. But these Fender guitars, especially the Tele, they're just such solid little workhorse guitars that you can abuse them and they hold up. I love that about that guitar.
Absolutely.
So again, this is an advertisement for the Telecaster. We love the Telecaster, and even though I came to it late, I'm a believer, man. I think everybody should have one. If you're a guitar player, you should have a Telecaster of some kind. I think it's just a great guitar to have.
That's funny because in the 90s, right around the time that I got that Telecaster right there, if someone gave me like a coupon, here's a coupon to pick out 5 guitars from the vintage guitar shop, I would have picked out 5 Telecasters. It was like my model.
Hilarious.
I was way into that.
It's like, let's see.
Like, because I could get a thin line, I could get, rosewood neck, I could get all.
That's
It was just
awesome.
like I was so into that model.
That's
so
cool.
long. And now I still am, but I love the Gibson sound.
I associate you with the Tele and the Junior. Those are the two guitars.
Those are my two biggies, but I love all kinds of classic American guitars.
Yeah. Well, the Tele sound you had in your head, is there a song or an artist or?
Oh, it's all that stuff, all that James Burton stuff that
cool.
really kind of, it's a honky mid-range.
Yeah.
It just snarls.
It's Luther Perkins, man.
Yeah,
that dude, like that chunky, twangy.
And
cool.
Even more so than that, it's definitely that sound, but I think you can get that sound very close on, a number of guitars, as I said, but there's that associated with that sound is a certain feeling you get when you dig into the instrument.
Yeah.
And that bridge on that style, that old style bridge just does that for me. It just feels right. And it feels like I can get stuff. I know where to look for stuff and it's going to be there. And it just, the thing is just super live. The pickups in it are super stock. I mean, they're the actual stock pickups. Never felt any need to change them. Some people do because they'll squeal. I think they'll squeal if you play with a lot of gain. But if I stand in front of my amp, it'll squeal. But I love the way those pickups sound. They do it for me. I get everything I want when I want the Telecaster sound. Reaching for that, I get everything I want.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
It's been a good one.
Yeah, for me, like I just associate. Well, I as I got older, I started to associate some of those sounds with like the Stones and things like that. But
roots rock.
Yeah, roots rock. Yeah, for sure. But again, like I just harken back to all those country players that I heard when I was younger, and they did play Teles, because you could watch you could see video or see photographs of them playing the Teles. You're right. I mean, you can kind of get some of those sounds without the guitars, but I still think it's such a distinct sound. I think a player could probably go listen to some different guitar stuff and go, yeah, that's a Tele. That's a Tele.
Yeah, I think
I think it's pretty unique, and
I agree
like
with
you
that.
say, yeah.
But I think you might be fooled on some depending on how things are EQ'd because it is
true enough. Yeah, true enough.
But it's the way that guitar feels when you're trying to play like that I really love.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I'm just thinking too of hearing it through an old Fender Tweed amp, right? Just like that, a Tele through that amp that's a distinct sound. That's a pretty cool.
And it's different.
Sound.
Like if you think about like the Buck Owens stuff back there with Don Rich.
Yeah,
that's a lot different Tele sound than like some of these other people, like even Clarence White or
that's
where it's more dirty. It's not super clean, and I like that. I like both.
Yeah,
but I kind of go for that. That nasally, like honky.
Yeah.
Like slightly dirty broken up telly sound.
I dig
just
that
the more
too.
you lean into it, the more it just kind of snarls.
I'm drawn to that too.
Crying sort
The
of sound.
crying Telecaster sound, yes.
No, it's a good one.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I just encourage anybody who plays guitar to at least try one. If you've got a friend that has one, just try one. Well, I came to it late, you know.
I think it's a pretty well-loved guitar. I mean, Mick Ronson, who was known for his singing lyrical Les Paul sounds, towards the end of his life, he had a Telecaster.
Really? I didn't know that. That's cool.
Like you mentioned that. A lot of people that kind of you reach a certain age, or a certain point in your guitar playing life, and you're like, it calls to you, I think. Yeah. Well, that was cool. Do you think we captured the Telecaster?
I think we did, man. Essence? I think we did it justice. I think we I think we
one of my
covered
favorite guitars. Yep. I probably have only like 10 favorite guitars in the world.
but that's in the top of your favorite.
It's in the top 15. No, I guess if someone really like put a gun to my head and said, you can only have one guitar,
it would be a Telly?
I think it would be the Telly or Junior. I don't know.
Well, it's between two. That's not too bad. But hopefully they wouldn't. 5 years ago, it was all about the Telly. It's like, I wouldn't even question it. Yeah.
Yes, give me a Telecaster. Because you could get everything done with a Telecaster.
Yeah, and like you say, if I had some Desert Island guitars to mention, Telly would be in there for sure.
You can only take 30.
I can only take 30. See, that's the thing with guitar players. It's like, well, you can't hold me down to one guitar, but...
And it used to be. We talked about this,
funny.
too, where... back when we started, it was, all right, what kind of electric guitar do you want to play? Pick one.
Right.
And you pick one and you stuck with it for years. So those days are thankfully gone.
I know.
But sometimes, I have that Telecaster, and it's like my Junior that I bond with all the time. I'm always playing them, even if I'm not playing that Telecaster live very much.
On the couch, you'll pull it out?
On the couch, if I'm recording or if I come in here.
I dig it.
I reach for it all the time.
It's a great guitar, man. That is a cool Telly, yeah. Yeah, I think we captured it, dude. So thanks for listening as always. And, check us out on social media. We're out there, Chris and Rick Talk Guitars. Like us, like our website, our podcast. It's on... Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Yeah, it is. And we sell T-shirts now, which are super cool. They have our super cool logo on there. Buy one. And also shoot us email and interact with us, because we love hearing from you guys, you people out there. It's really cool. What do you got to say, Chris?
Thank you for listening as always. Yeah, and do what he said.
Amen. All right. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.